Hey everybody, I am so excited for you to hear this week's episode. Today I am joined by my friend Jason VanRuler. Jason is a licensed therapist. He's based out of the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area, and he's actually written two books. He's written Get Past Your Past, and he is just coming out with a book called Discovering Your Communication Type, which releases April 14th. And today we have a conversation about what it means to live with everyday resilience and what it means to lighten our load, and truly diving into his first book, Get Past Your Past, and how do we actually do that? There's so many things that we're carrying with us. And so that's what the conversation's all about today. I think you're going to be really blessed by not only what we talk about, but by Jason's perspective and how he shares what he shares. And so I really want you to lean in today. And also, I'm going to revisit this later, but make sure you check out his new book, Discovering Your Communication Type. It's going to be a blessing to you as well. But without further ado, let's jump into today's episode with Jason VanRuler. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Everyday Adventure podcast. Today, I am joined by my good friend, Jason VanRuler. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been looking forward to this.
Man, I have been to, um, you know, rewind a few years, and I had a different podcast, and somebody sent me this new author that's writing this new book, and he would love to be on your podcast. And that's how we met. And so we met the last time we did this, we were complete strangers.
We were, and we still pulled it off. We
Yeah.
still made it happen. And
Yeah,
then you got me to go to North Dakota in the winter.
I did.
So we really hit it off, my friend.
For like pennies, by the way. I did not offer you a big package, a speaker package. I said, "Hey, I would love to have you," and you were so kind. And I know
Friendship
people,
was enough. Friendship
yeah,
was enough. It was a little chilly, but you got me there.
yeah. Well, what's funny is that conference from when we're recording is like in a couple weeks, and
Mm,
um, there's a lot of conversations about memories and all this stuff, and I've heard so many people talk about who is the guy with the tape measure, and
mm.
and just remembering the impact that you had. And so I know you've had a big impact on me. That first time we talked, we cut the recording, and you just spoke life into me and what I was doing. And I shared the dream of writing a book, and you really just breathed life into that and said, "Hey, whatever you need." And that's led to many phone calls, and you've connected me with people. It's just been, I'm so grateful for you and so excited to have you on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, look at this thing, full circle, right?
Yeah.
It's like now you've done it. And so I'm the one who won in all that, my friend, because I got to see where you were headed. And so it's been a gift to be part of it.
Well, that's amazing. And right now on the podcast, we're talking about the book Everyday Adventure, which just came out. And what we've been doing is kind of going through the main kind of points of the book and having a conversation about what that looks like and how we can live it out. But then also having a conversation with somebody that's an expert in that area. And you, as a therapist, as a clinician, you have really impacted my way of thinking about certain aspects. And so we're going to talk about developing resilience today.
Mm.
And really the idea of developing everyday resilience, because, in my book, I write about Hugh Glass, which is the Revenant story, which he crawled 200 miles through your neck of the woods in South Dakota. And it's this epic story, but what does that look like in our everyday lives? And so before we jump into that, though, like when you think of everyday adventure, and I know you wrote an endorsement for the book, which I appreciate, like what comes to mind when you think of just that concept in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really smart concept because it is possible. I think we just forget that. You have some kind of conversation in there about, we know how to do some of these things as kids, and then we grow up, and somehow that gets kind of lost. And so I love the idea of every day could be an adventure. Like that is possible
Yeah.
because I think otherwise we just get kind of stuck on thinking that someday, or even the Revenant. I mean, imagine if starts off thinking I'm going to go 200 miles. How likely are you to get started with that? I don't know about you, but I would be a little hesitant
Yeah.
myself. And so
Sure.
I just love this idea, even clinically, that's how change happens, right? Is it starts small and it starts now.
That's so good. And When you think of, so the subtitle is how to live your ordinary life to the fullest. Like when you think of living life to the fullest, what is that definition, or how does Jason think about that?
Yeah, it's a great thing, and I talk to clients about that a lot. Is like, what is the best day for you? And what I hear a lot of people say is they don't know. They're just like, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
A lot of times we can start with like your birthday is usually your idea of the best day. So most
Yeah.
people they decide to have their best day on their birthday. But what if you could have your best day every day, which is what you talk about, or have that extraordinary day? So for me, it's all about some habits and routines that just help me to feel really good, show up, kind of keep me filled, keep me focused on my faith. I've got a number of those things that I would call a 10 out of 10 day for me.
Yeah, you got to give us a little bit of what that 10 out of 10 is, because I think that's so fun. Like, what's your 10 out of 10?
Yeah. Yeah. So my 10 out of 10, uh, part of it is I have what's called the daily five. So the daily five for me is just five things I do every day that help me show up, bless my marriage, and help me with faith. So those would be like some sort of physical activity. So I usually do like 50 push-ups a day. That would just be one of the things. Um, I'm in the Word or do a devotion every day. I do a gratitude practice every day. I have time with my kids. And the last one is a little bit silly, but every day I make my wife laugh. And so the thing is, when I met her, I thought she was only with me for my looks. And so
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
my surprise when she said, "No, you're great, but what I love about you is you make me laugh." And so it's always stuck with me is if I could make her laugh every day, it would signal to her I loved her. And so that when I do my daily five, I have a great day. The rest of the day is pretty easy.
That's so great. I mean, that is like practical. We could take that with us today. I love the looks thing. Like there's personality hires and then there's personality marries, and I'm one of those, of like, yeah, that
Me
you
too.
got that. You got that. But no, that's so good. I think just that practicality of like what is the 10 out of 10 day? And that's really at the heartbeat of this is just um, you know, every day can be extraordinary if we just give it a little extra. Like if we just kind of intentionality and lean into it and lean into what this day brings. But what oftentimes, at least in my own journey, holds me back is it's not always easy. It's not always, you know, you just take another turn and it turns out a wide open pasture and everything just falls into place. Like there's so many times in everyday life where the car breaks down or where the relationship breaks down or something doesn't turn out how you thought. And that's why I've really realized, just like in adventure, in life, you need to develop resilience. So, what does the idea of everyday resilience kind of look like to you, or what does that sound like to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it is an everyday thing because to your point, for I think all of us, it doesn't always go as planned. And so what do we do when things break down or fall apart? And I guess when I think about resilience, it's being really good at dealing with things that were unexpected or were hard or difficult. It's resilience is about what we do with what happens.
Yep.
And I think people who are the most resilient are creative people who expect they will need to be creative. And so when those things happen, they say that's part of how this is going to work. And so what am I going to do now? I think people who struggle with resilience are kind of chronically surprised things didn't work out. So they're more
Right.
upset with, hey, it didn't go how I wanted it to go, instead of getting to that reality quickly and just saying, here's where we're really at.
Yeah. How do you make that tweak? Like for that person that maybe can see it, maybe this is like the half glass full, half empty type situation, but that person that's expecting and creatively expecting, hey, we're gonna hit a roadblock, but I'm gonna be ready for it, prepared for it. Like, how do you kind of make that pivot from, man, everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and the Eeyore almost like persona?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we got to step out of taking everything so personally. So sometimes, the car breaking down isn't really about us. The car just
Yeah.
broke down. So I think
Right.
sometimes taking a step back and just saying, is this a personal thing? I think the other thing, one of my favorite quotes, Scott Peck says, mental health is commitment to reality at all costs. I think being committed to what's real. There's what I want and there's what is happening. And those two might be wildly different, but one I can do something with and one I can't. And so it's kind of this idea of, I've got three kiddos and they like Legos, and so they'll get a Lego set to build this exact thing, right? And so I
Yep.
remember one particular time we gave them this set, so they're going to build. It was like a car or something, and so they were super excited and got it all together, and then they kind of were starting to put it together, and they're like, we're missing one piece. Okay, so they got this beautiful idea of what they want to build. They got the set to do it, and they're missing one piece. Now, would you tell those kids to throw away the set because they missed the piece?
No.
Probably not,
No.
right? Because you'd say, well, that's a waste. You're just missing a
Yeah. Yeah.
piece. But so many people do that, right? They say, this is how I dreamt it, and there's a piece that's off. And so I don't want any of it. And I think resilience is saying build it anyway, but build it a little different, or build it anyway, but it's missing a piece, or build it anyway, but maybe it's better like this. That's resilience, is kind of leaning into the ability to say, okay, well, we're going to move forward anyhow.
Wow, that's so good. I think, one of the things that I've uncovered in my own life is that, rarely do we tell the story of like the view from the top. Rarely when we get back from a trip or something, it's not like, man, we got to that place and it looked awesome. It's like, no, we got in the taxi and we realized it was the wrong one and he didn't speak any English and we didn't know where we were going. Like it's that kind of thing, where it's that story that comes out that really builds the adventure, but also builds the meaning and the purpose. It's the thing that we remember the most. And so I love that definition of like, we can really dwell on that one piece is missing, or we can build a new block. We can build something, and see that it could be potentially better. So I love that. Really, when it comes to this idea of resilience, there's a couple things that come to mind for me. It's, lightening your load and what you carry, fixing your focus and refusing to quit. But on the lighten your load side of things, I remember going on a backpack trip with some of my good friends and they had like 30 pounds and I had probably 55 pounds of gear. And they're like, you are going to be miserable if you try to do this with all of that stuff. And they literally had me unpack everything in front of them. They're like, you do not need that. You do not need that. Like, you need, and I just remember, years down the road realizing like that is exactly it. Like, there's things that are holding us back. And I know in your first book, Get Past Your Past, which is excellent, you really do talk about this concept of there's things that are behind us that can't maybe come with us anymore, or at least we have to deal with them. We have to recognize that they're there. And so, how can you really speak into just that idea of recognizing the things that we go through and how they impact where we are and where we're going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think our past always impacts our present, and it impacts how we see the world, but the degree of how much is up to us. And so we get to decide what we carry. And that's really tough because sometimes we're carrying things we really didn't want to have to carry in the first place. And so kind of coming to that place of saying, maybe somebody loaded a bunch of gear in your pack that it's not even yours, but now you're
Wow.
carrying that. And so what do I do then? And so I think what it is we get to decide, but we have to be willing to kind of ask the question of how is this helping me now? And with Get Past Your Past, what we really talked about is so many things that happened in the past serve the needs of the past, not the needs of today.
Okay.
And so the gear you have might be great gear for 10 years ago. It might not be great for today. Or the outlook you have might have really fit a long time ago, or it might have fit when you're going through a breakup, but doesn't fit if you're trying to build a relationship. And so I think we have to just get really good at deciding when to let go of something And I do kind of a silly thing, but I'm really big on like experiential therapy and kind of movement and doing things. And so something I've done for years is I've got a weighted like ruck pack, and so there's a 30-pound weight that you put in the back. And I don't really know why people do it, but I thought it would be a great idea. And so I've got one of these bags. And so, if I'm stuck with something, I'll take a post-it note and I'll write the thing I'm stuck with, and I'll put the post-it note on the weight, and I will walk until I don't want to walk with it anymore. And there is something so powerful about that moment, Stephen, when I go, I'm taking this bag off. I do not want to do this anymore. But it is a very visual and physical reminder of what we need to do so many times in life, which is to say, this isn't helpful to carry anymore. It's not mine to carry anymore. That was a lesson for the past, not the
Mm.
present. But it's really that reminder, because I think so many of us struggle with that, of just that ability to kind of lay it down.
Yeah, I think um what are some of the things that you really see weighing people down that maybe they don't realize? Like because again, I think that we go and we just feel like we're going slow. It feels like we're not going anywhere. It feels like we're caught in this autopilot of just like repeat day after day. And I think there's so many times that there's this reality of like I don't even know what I'm carrying. Like I don't even know what's in that bag. I haven't looked at the bag for 10 years. So what are maybe some of the things that you find that people are carrying with them or things that they're carrying that they don't even realize they're carrying?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you a very therapist-like answer here. So,
Perfect.
it's emotions. I mean, what I see a lot of times is that people are carrying around grief, or they're carrying around anger, or they're carrying around an emotion they weren't really sure what to do with. And so they just sort of willed their way through it.
Yeah.
Something that I see when I work with someone who's maybe gone through a breakup, or there's been a death or something like that, is this kind of idea of like, how long am I allowed to feel bad about that?
Hmm.
And everybody has kind of different rules, about how long you're allowed to feel sad or angry or disappointed about something. And so what a lot of people do is they just kind of make up a rule about that, and then they live by the rule even if it didn't work, right? So they go, well, this important person in my life passed away, and I've been sad for a month, but that's about enough. So I'm not allowed to be sad anymore. And
Right.
and what happens then is those become the things we carry.
Wow. Okay. So it's almost like I'm going to move past, but I don't know how to. Like it's time for me to move on, but I don't actually move on. I just said I want to move on, and then we don't realize it. That's so good. I feel like there's probably somebody listening today that feels in that stuck place and in that thing. And I know you just shared a few different things like the rucksack and that note and just realizing it. But what are maybe how can we help somebody move forward without minimizing what they've been through, without saying like it? Because I think that's sometimes unfortunately what gets miscommunicated. I don't even think it's the intention often, especially serving as a pastor for over a decade. I think it's easy sometimes to share like just forgive them, like just forgive them. And the Bible says it, so do it. And I think there's theology behind that, but I think sometimes our delivery and it just gets lost in translation. And so that person that's feeling like they can't move forward, how do we help them?
Yeah, and I love your heart, because you're right. I mean, I think sometimes that is, whether intentional or unintentional, the advice people kind of get is like, just be done with it. It
Yeah.
would be easier if you just stopped. It's like, well, sure, that would be
Yeah.
great, but you think, well, I haven't done it yet. So I think, like, even if you go to the rucksack example, if I want to set it down, I have to take it off. I have to open the bag. I have to look at the weight. I have to take the weight out. I have to set it down somewhere else and find a new place. Like, it's those things, right? So when
Yeah.
I'm talking to a client, what I'm saying to them is, when someone passes away and we have a funeral, that's for a reason.
Right.
And the funeral is this symbolic act and structure that we work through to help process our grief, right? We
Mm.
name who we lost. We speak our feelings about who we lost. We talk about what's happening now. There's some formality to it. there's some physical representation of what's happened, and then we know we can go back and visit that again.
Yep.
And so the same is true in dealing with some of these emotions. Is we need to have kind of in some ways a funeral for those emotions that we haven't dealt with.
Wow. So, I mean, I think I've looked at different changes in my life and I've kind of used that analogy of like I need to give it a funeral. Like it's one of those things that need to remember or in relationships. I know friendship and just something that I think about a lot right now is just friendship in your 30s and friendship when life gets hard and when life gets busy and just realizing like there's some relationships that I need to let go of. There's some expectations in those relationships that I need to let go of, and just that idea of like that funeral or kind of that putting to rest. And again, yeah, you remember it and you come back to it, but that's really helpful. And I think one of the things from Get Past Your Past that's made the biggest impact on me is kind of I think they're back-to-back chapters and I might get them wrong, but it's like don't run from it and then you have to feel it to heal it. And so what does that look like? Like one that temptation to run from it and just I don't even want to deal with it. Like I know that hurts there, but it's going to hurt too bad if I think about it for 5 minutes or and then yeah, just that importance of feeling it to heal it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to run from it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when it's a difficult situation, who doesn't want to run away from that? I think the problem is it just chases you. It's as a kid, I was always terrified when a bee would fly around me. Am I going to get stung or what's going to happen here? And maybe all kids had that, but I was always really concerned. And so what would happen is the bee would come around, I'd be afraid, not want to deal with the bee, and I'd swat at it, right? And then I'd literally sprint the other way. Well, the bee chased me, right? The bee
Yeah.
didn't like go, oh, okay, well, I'll just mind my own business. The bee was always like, hey, this guy, he's swatting at me, he's running away. I must chase him. And so I think when we deal with things, it's kind of the same way, right? It is
Right.
instead of just sort of saying, like, how do I show up calmly to the situation in front of me, right? Because when I can do that, I can see a little more objectively. But if I'm reacting just out of my emotion, the chances are I'm actually going to do things that make it even more difficult to deal with.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of times that might be the next hang up for somebody. Is that all right, I'm doing the work. I think one of the bravest, most courageous things somebody can do is see a professional and a therapist, a counselor. And I know that's been a big part of my journey was just some of those things that I just kind of not even thought about addressing, doing it in that environment with somebody that had the expertise they did, and it was really helpful. But then I think there's been so many times, whether it's in my own life or somebody I'm working with and talking to, that that's like, okay, I've been doing that for 6 months. You know, I thought I would feel different. I thought it would be better, and that's why for me a big part of that resilience and that perseverance is just the refusal to quit. And um and I think and I don't know from like the clinical side of it. I just know it from like the reality side of it of just there comes this shift when you do say like, yeah, it's hard, but I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to keep going even when it is hard. But from your vantage point, w- just that idea of refusing to quit, like how important is that? And I know that that can be one of those trigger words of like, just don't quit, like, so how do we say that in a better way?
Well, I mean, I think what's so cool is you're actually speaking to it already with having, the everyday adventure making days extraordinary. Like you're already talking about it. So the not quitting is getting to a place where you're in love with the process. I think where people get stuck is they're solely focused on the outcome, right? And so it's
Yeah.
kind of that idea of like I'm in therapy 6 months, I don't feel the way I want. That's the outcome. It's like, okay, well, maybe not, but how are you doing in the process? And I think what we start to learn, which is kind of what you alluded to already, is the process is where all the good stuff is at, right? It's kind of like you said,
Yeah.
we don't really talk about the celebration on the mountaintop that much. We talk about the fun stories or crazy stories or things that happen along the way. And I think the not giving up, the people who are most resilient and steadfast in that, they're okay with the process. They just say, "Hey, this is how it is. I don't know when I'm going to get to that mountaintop, but I'm on my way anyway."
Yeah, and you said your daily five, and I think that is something one of those things that I think about when it comes to what that means. I call it rhythms. That's just kind of the language that I've really clinged to. Is just that current of our life, and we can establish a new rhythm. We can establish a new that small that one small step that we can take each day, and then we can build on that. Because I think what I've realized is that it's when you establish something and you can come back to that, and it's that practice, it gets easier to add something else to it. And so you spoke to one, which is gratitude. That's a big deal to me, is just thinking about what am I grateful for? Because especially when I'm in a negative headspace and when I'm thinking about the hard things, I'm thinking about all of the negative things. And it said that media, and it's probably higher now, but it was like for every one positive thing, there's nine negative things. And so I think we're just wired in that way. But maybe share a couple other of those practical things that we can do, that we can establish in that everyday place, that as we stack these things, as we keep coming back to them, it helps us grow.
Yeah, I think gratitude is very, very important, like you said. And it just, I mean, it helps us so much with our attitude and our mindset. I think also perspective taking, sometimes we're so stuck seeing the world through our own eyes that we sort of lose perspective on how things are other places. And so doing things like serving others and helping out, I think really helps us to kind of see sometimes our problems through a more objective lens. Meaning sometimes they're exactly how bad we thought they were, and other times maybe less bad, right? But I
Yeah.
think when we're serving others, that kind of gives us a perspective, but it also builds us up because we're doing something bigger than ourselves. When I talk to people who are really stuck and maybe in the depths of it and in the darkness, a lot of times they are really helped by believing in something bigger than themselves, right? So
Yeah.
for us, that would be faith, but even a purpose or a project that just serves more people, I think when we're part of something that matters, it gets us out of our own head.
Yeah, that's so that those two things, gratitude and that perspective, like I think those are really helpful. I was just talking to somebody and they were in a really negative spot, um and then I didn't even prompt it, but they reached out like, "Hey, do you know of anybody that could use their shovel or their driveway shoveled?" And I met up with him again and I just asked him like, "That was cool. Where did that come from?" And he's like, "Honestly, I just felt like I was so caught into my own negative spiral of like if I can just help somebody." And he did it for a few different people, and he said like how much it improved like his daily, of like, man, it's not all about me. Like this one thing that's happening um isn't the only thing that's happening. And that biblical perspective of it's more blessed to give than to receive. Like there's this idea that it actually helps our well-being when we serve others, when we give. And so I don't know if it's shocking to me, but it's shocking how easy it is to bypass those things for sure.
Yeah, we just forget, and so I've talked a little bit about this, but every Monday I try to start the week just encouraging three people for the week ahead.
Okay.
And that's just a practice that's been really helpful for me. So I kind of look throughout the week and I just go like, who could really benefit from some encouragement, or who do I think would enjoy getting a message? And it could be a DM or a video or a text, or it doesn't really matter how, but I will intentionally think I want to encourage these three people today. And I will tell you that that's some of the best time of my whole week, regardless what happens.
Yeah.
Just because it's that getting to pour into other people, getting to do something bigger than yourself, and then I think getting some perspective.
That's really cool. And I think like there's in a lot of movies, obviously there's the story arc, and I mean Donald Miller has really nailed that with the story brand framework and all that of kind of translating that to life. But so many times that person that the movie's about, they go through that lull, and there's times where somebody comes in and brings them up. But more often than not, I've caught on to more movies recently where the change in the story is when they actually become that helper and they guide somebody else, and then you see them both rise together. And I think there's so much power to that. When we lift others, we naturally are lifted in our own selves too. And I just think when we can do it together, when we can do it with people, there's just value in relationships always. And I know that's a big part of your next book. I mean, obviously your work in general, but you've got a book coming out in about a month here. Tell us
I
a little bit
do.
about that.
Yeah, it's called Discovering Your Communication Type. And what it is it's an assessment that helps you identify your primary and secondary communication type so you can better communicate with other people. And the genesis of it, or the catalyst for it, was really just getting to work with teams and couples and organizations where I would see kind of these moments where it was all hinging on a conversation.
Hmm.
And sometimes it really landed, right? Someone would
Yeah,
say something and the room would kind of move and it would be this beautiful outcome. And other times someone would say something that seemed really equally the right thing to say and it would fall flat. And so I just found myself going, I wonder what's going on there. And
yeah.
doing all my work with attachment really led me to identify some predictable types that if we know them, we can communicate to people on a deeper level.
That's awesome. So when does that come out?
Yeah, so that's out on April 14th.
Okay. Well, very cool. We'll definitely be getting that. I'll be adding that to the collection for sure. And
Oh,
we'll
thank you.
definitely link to that to the show notes. I know it's available for pre-order right now, so we can jump on it. But I think anything you write, I'm going to get and I'm going to lean into
Mm.
because you've really just been an encouragement to me. Your content has been encouraging. But I think getting to know you, it's that kind of effect of like you could write a book on oceans and why it looks blue from above, and I would be like, oh, I'm gonna read it because Jason wrote it. And so,
Now, why'd you have to ruin my next book? That
sorry, I
isn't
I
really
know
what
you
it's
told me that
about.
in
Okay.
confidence. Yeah,
Well, you guessed it. Okay. Now we know.
big pivot in
Big, big
Jason's writing
pivot.
journey. But
Ocean.
yeah, seriously though, anything you do, I'm gonna get my hands on it because it's you just are that person that is real. And we were talking about this before we started recording, and social media. We're both in that world and doing things in that, and um, you know, so much of the trendy stuff right now is fast movements and doing all of these different things and all the kind of effects and editing and all that stuff. And you've just been showing up every day right where you're at right now and just sharing helpful information that's transforming lives. And I just love that quote unquote social media strategy. Like just being you, Jason. I love it.
Well, thank you. That took a while to figure out. So I didn't figure that out immediately, but I have over time. And you know what? It's actually like just good life advice. Just show up as you are.
Yeah. Well, where can I know again, people are going to be wondering like how can we track you down and how can we follow you? So, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram's great, jason.vanruler. You can find me there or my website, jasonvr.com. And then I post content every day.
That's awesome. Every time I see the Jason VR, I think of virtual reality, and
That's what it should be.
that's gotta be your
Wouldn't that be
next thing.
fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be so much more fun if you went to the site and it was virtual reality. That'd be awesome.
Just you walking around your house, doing your stuff.
Hey, maybe someday. We're getting close. That could
That's
be
like
cool.
that's kind of the thing right now with all these vloggers and stuff is pretty much that's what you're doing. But before we go, one thing that we ask every guest and something that we're doing on the podcast is really putting this into practice. So at the end of this, we're going to have a challenge that our whole community can do together. But one thing that we are encouraging everybody every single episode, every single week, is to really think about what they're celebrating and what they're anticipating. I've just realized that when I get caught in this, like in 6 months, then I will, and when I have kids, then I will. When we are just always thinking about that future thing. But when I really take that time to celebrate something happening today and anticipate something that's just around the corner, something really frees up in me. So, what's one thing, Jason, that you're celebrating right now?
Yeah, today is it's pizza and movie night at my house. And
No way.
so
That's awesome.
This is like the Super Bowl. This is a really big deal. So we are all excited. We'll play a little family game. We'll eat too much pizza. We'll watch a movie. It's going to be a great night. So I'm looking forward to it.
Do you know what the showing is yet?
Of course not. No, that's the argument. So
Okay,
that's going to take about 3 hours to work through, and hopefully we have time for a movie after.
because how old is your crew right now?
Yeah, so they're 15, 12, and 10. So there's enough span there that you have to have some very serious negotiations about movies.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes the negotiation is I just turn one on and say, deal with it.
That's what I do.
We're the 7, 5, and 3, and we've got two boys that are like, Lego movie or Minecraft movie. And then our daughter's like, no. And she's into like Taylor, my wife's, Disney movies from the 90s. So
Okay.
Mary Kay and Ashley type,
Boys love it, I'm sure.
oh,
They're thrilled about it.
pumped. They did get into Airbud though, so that was good. But and what's something
Those
that
rare nights when it intersects and they all want to say it, those are
Mm,
magic. Those are
yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
well, that's awesome. We're doing that's that's been our rhythm for a few years too, is Friday night pizza family movie night. So I love it. But what is something that you're looking forward to, something you're anticipating?
Yeah, I mean, I think book launch for sure.
Yeah.
And then family trip in May. We're gonna go to Japan. So super excited about that and just learning about it. We try to come up with something that's going to require us to learn a bunch of stuff. So it'll be stressful. It'll be new. It'll be fun. So we're looking forward to that.
Awesome. That I'm looking forward to it for you now. So now I have something else to anticipate. I love it. I
I'll
love
share
it.
lots of pictures.
Well, good. Good deal. Well, hey, again, Jason, thanks for jumping on today. And everybody, thanks for listening. We'll catch you real soon here on the Everyday Adventure Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Jason VanRuler. I know there's so many things that we can take away from it, and I'm going to take some time just to ponder them a little bit more, whether it's the practice of gratitude or the practice of perspective taking and finding ways to encourage and serve other people. But today I want to encourage you with a challenge, and that challenge is the bag check challenge. And so today it's very simple. What I want you to do is take inventory of some of the things that you're carrying with you. He had the picture of the rucksack, and he actually has a physical rucksack that he takes a sticky note and he puts that thing that he's carrying on the sticky note and he walks around with it until he doesn't want to walk around with it anymore. But you might not have a rucksack. So what I want you to do today is take a sticky note and take one emotion, one thing that you're carrying that you don't want to carry, and write it down and bring that to the Lord and just say, God, help me to leave this behind. Help me to let this go so that I have more space for the things that you have for me so I can live this adventure that you have for me. So I encourage you, take a moment to think about this and to participate in the Bag Check Challenge. And as you do, join us on our broadcast channel, Everyday Adventure. You can go to my page, Stephen Glosser, and find and join that broadcast channel. Or you can go to stephenglosser.com/everyday-adventure-challenge. But regardless, love for you to participate, to join us in this week's challenge. And while you do so, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, follow, leave a rating. And if you haven't already, make sure you get Everyday Adventure, and make sure you check out Jason's books, Get Past Your Past and Discovering Your Communication Type. Both incredible books that I want you to get your hands on. But have a great week, and we'll see you soon on the Everyday Adventure podcast.